Hello everybody, my name is Kendra Souter, and today I'll be teaching you about the types of conflict in speculative fiction. We had recently discussed tension, which is actually defined as the anticipation of what will happen next in the story, aka the driving force. This works hand in hand with conflict, which is why we are going to discuss conflict today. And conflict in fiction is defined as the struggle between opposing forces, whether it is external or internal. Now, what's the difference? One takes place outside of the character's mind and the other takes place inside the character's mind. External conflict takes place between the character and outside forces, whether it be other characters or environment, etc. Other creatures, things like that. Some examples of external conflict are war, love affairs, alien invasion, apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic environments, things of that nature. Internal conflict takes place within the character's mind, whether it be psychological, emotional, what have you, whatever struggle that they have within themselves. Some examples of internal conflict are actually tough decision making, competing desires, addiction, overcoming fear, and one of my personal favorites is the struggle internally to rise above and become the hero that everybody needs. Now, aside from external and internal conflict, there are actually 7 different types of conflict that are used within speculative fiction, well, within fiction in general. The first type of conflict is person versus person, which is usually character conflicts that takes place between the protagonist and the antagonist. One of the best examples today is actually the film Avengers: Infinity War, which takes place between the Avengers themselves and Thanos, which is our villain. The next kind is person versus nature. Yes, character versus environment, for whatever reason. One of the best examples in film today is actually The Day After Tomorrow, where we have global warming, which has rapidly changed the environment like that, right? And what kind of struggle for the character does this create? Well, it separates father and son, and the father goes to find his son. The next kind of conflict is person versus self. This is strictly internal conflict, where the character has any kind of psychological, emotional struggle within themselves. A good example of this in fiction is actually Crime and Punishment, where we have our main character that actually struggles with violent fantasy. The next kind of conflict is actually person versus society, and who doesn't think that's going on right now? But we're not going to discuss that. So normally, this kind of conflict takes place when you have your main character that has been victimized or oppressed by the society in which they live in, and it needs to change. One of the best examples of this actually is, and it's a very popular example actually used in the video you'll be watching this lesson, is The Hunger Games. We have Katniss Everdeen, who is our main character, who struggles with the games. She fights to stop the games and to fight society that is Panem under President Snow. The next kind of conflict is person versus technology. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's when a character struggles with technology or scientific advances. This takes place in the short story I Am Robot, where we have our Detective Spooner, who struggles with the rise of artificial intelligence. Next, we have person versus supernatural. Now, the example I will go ahead and use first is the show Supernatural, where they are confronted by supernatural forces in every single episode of the show. The next example, and what I feel is more relevant at this time, is actually the novel It by Stephen King, where there is a group of children that is actually confronted by a clown that is actually a supernatural force that kills children and steals their souls. The last one, and it depends on who you ask, but it actually needs to be on the list, is person versus fate. This is very much both an external and internal struggle, where they are confronted with fate and struggle in so many ways to fulfill that destiny that has been handed to them. One example is The Lord of the Rings, where Frodo struggles to fulfill his destiny to destroy the ring in the fires of Mordor. It's not just an internal struggle where he doesn't believe he can do this on his own. It is an external struggle. So that's it. That's all we've got for today. When it comes to conflict, if you have any questions, do not be scared to ask. But that's all we've got for today.